Your entire company is built on stolen intellectual property. I hit send on the email and watched as my former best friend's face drained of color from across the crowded launch party. 5 years of friendship, 3 years of building my dream, one betrayal that cost me everything. Until tonight, my name is Olivia Chen. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I'm a builder, a dreamer, a problem solver. At least, that's who I was before Marcus Reynolds stole my life's work and convinced Silicon Valley he was a visionary. I stood in the back of the sleek downtown San Francisco venue, dressed in black, invisible among the waitstaff. The champagne flowed. Investors mingled. Tech journalists snapped photos of the man who'd become the darling of the startup world, my former best friend, and now my greatest enemy. Marcus raised his glass to the crowd. To InnoSync and the future of collaborative workspaces. The crowd cheered. I checked my watch. 3, 2, 1. Phones started buzzing across the room. First, one investor checked his screen, then another. Soon, confused murmurs rippled through the celebration. Marcus's smile faltered as his own phone lit up. I had sent proof to every person who mattered in that room. Development logs, time-stamped prototypes, our private conversations, everything. The party was just beginning, but for Marcus, it was already over. 6 months earlier, I was living my best life. I had spent 3 years developing InnoSync, my collaborative workspace platform that used AI to optimize team dynamics and productivity. It wasn't just code, it was my vision for transforming how people work together. My tiny apartment in Oakland had become command central. Whiteboard walls covered in flowcharts, sticky notes everywhere. My cat, Pascal, had learned to dodge the towers of technical books that formed a maze on my floor. I worked days at Tech Forward, a mid-sized software company where I was a senior project manager. Nights and weekends belonged to InnoSync. Sleep was optional. You need to get out more, Marcus had said during one of our weekly dinners. All work and no play makes Olivia a dull girl. I rolled my eyes. Says the man who once forgot to eat for 2 days while coding. Marcus laughed, his familiar smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. We'd been friends since our computer science days at Berkeley. He'd gone the startup route, launching 2 moderately successful apps before joining a venture capital firm as a technical advisor. I'd chosen corporate stability while building my dream on the side. How's the project coming? He asked, pouring more wine. I couldn't contain my excitement. I've finally cracked the team dynamic algorithm. The AI can now predict workflow bottlenecks before they happen and suggest optimal task distribution based on individual work patterns. That's huge, Liv. Marcus leaned forward. Have you thought about seeking funding yet? You can't keep this as a side project forever. I hesitated. I'm close, but not quite there. The interface needs work, and I'm still refining the onboarding process. Let me help, Marcus offered. I see pitches all day at the firm. I know what investors want. I trusted him completely. We'd been through everything together. Breakups, family crises, career setbacks. Marcus was the brother I never had. I could use another set of eyes, I admitted. But you have to sign an NDA. He placed his hand over his heart, mock offended. You wound me, Olivia Chen, as if I would ever steal from my best friend. If only I had noticed how he didn't actually agree to sign anything. The next weekend, Marcus came over. I showed him everything, the code repository, the user research, the market analysis, my launch strategy. He asked intelligent questions and offered helpful suggestions. His enthusiasm validated all my late nights and sacrifices. This is revolutionary, he said, eyes wide. You're going to change how teams work forever. I beamed with pride. So you think it has potential? Potential? Marcus laughed. Liv, this is a unicorn in the making, but you need to move fast. Let me make some introductions. I hugged him, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you for believing in me. Always, he replied, hugging me back. What are friends for? 2 weeks later, Marcus stopped returning my texts. I figured he was busy. Then came the cryptic message. Need to talk. Something's come up. We met at our usual cafe. Marcus looked different. Expensive haircut, designer clothes, a new confidence in his posture. "I've been thinking about your project," he began, not quite meeting my eyes. "Our project," I corrected with a smile. Since his visit, I'd started thinking of him as my unofficial advisor. He cleared his throat. "Right. About that. I showed some of the concepts to my partners at the firm." My stomach dropped. "Without asking me first?" "It was just a casual conversation," he said dismissively. "But they got excited, really excited." Something in his tone made my skin prickle. "And?" "They want to invest. 7 figures, Liv." I should have been ecstatic. Instead, alarm bells rang in my head. "In my company? But I haven't even prepared a formal pitch." Marcus fidgeted with his coffee cup. "Not exactly. They're backing me to develop the concept." The world tilted sideways. "What concept? My concept?" "With significant modifications," he said quickly. Look, they didn't believe a project manager from Tech Forward could execute something this ambitious, but they know my track record. I couldn't breathe. "You're stealing my idea?" "I'm making it happen." His voice rose defensively. "I can build a team, scale quickly, get this to market. You were going to tinker in your apartment for another year." "It's my intellectual property," I said, my voice shaking. "Everything you saw was under the assumption of confidentiality." Marcus leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Prove it. We never signed anything. And good luck explaining to investors how your side project doesn't violate your employment contract with Tech Forward." My employment contract. He'd weaponized the very reason I'd kept InnoSync separate from my day job. The intellectual property clause was standard, but vague enough to cause problems if challenged. "You wouldn't do this to me," I whispered. His eyes softened momentarily. "I'm offering you a way in, Liv. Join my team. Senior developer role, good equity package. We can build this together." The audacity stunned me. "Work for you? On my own creation?" "It's business," he said coldly. "Nothing personal." I stood up so quickly, my chair fell backward. The cafe went silent. "This is the most personal thing you could possibly do." As I walked out, he called after me. "You'll regret not taking the offer." He was right about one thing. I did have regrets, but not the kind he meant. The next 3 months were a nightmare. I consulted lawyers who gave me the hard truth. Without signed agreements or clear evidence that Marcus had stolen actual code, I faced an uphill legal battle against a well-funded opponent. "Your best bet is to prove you originated the concept and force a settlement," my attorney explained. "But that requires resources you don't have." Meanwhile, Marcus moved fast. He assembled a team, secured office space in Soma, and began development on what he now called Synchronicity, a transparent rebrand of InnoSync. I threw myself into gathering evidence. I had my original development logs and GitHub commits. I had emails discussing concepts with Marcus. It wasn't nothing, but it wasn't enough. I needed more. My breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jenna Kim, a UX designer I knew from industry meetups, reached out one evening. "Olivia? I just interviewed at Synchronicity, the product they're building. It's exactly what you described at the hackathon last year." My heart raced. "Jenna, would you be willing to go on record about that?" She hesitated. "I need this job, Liv. The market's tight right now." "I understand," I said, disappointed but not surprised. "But," she continued, "I could take the job and keep my eyes open. Would that help?" It was ethically questionable. It was also my only shot. "You do that for me?" "What Marcus is doing is wrong," she said firmly. "And I've been on the receiving end of idea theft before. It sucks." With Jenna as my inside source, I began building my case. She sent screenshots of internal documents that clearly mirrored my original designs. She recorded a meeting where Marcus explained his breakthrough algorithm, using almost my exact words from our dinner conversation. But the most damning evidence came when Jenna was accidentally included on an email chain discussing the Olivia problem. "She's making noise with some investors," Marcus had written. "If she keeps it up, remind her about the tech forward contract. That should shut her up." It was the smoking gun I needed. Proof that he knew he'd taken my intellectual property and was actively threatening me to stay silent. Still, I needed more leverage. Synchronicity was announcing their $2 million funding round at a launch party. All the major investors and tech press would be there. It was the perfect stage, if I could access it. The plan formed slowly. Jenna helped me identify everyone who would attend. I created a secure website with all my evidence, accessible only with a password. Then I drafted an email that would go to every investor, journalist, and industry influencer at exactly 8:45 p.m., right after Marcus's big speech. But I needed to be there to witness it, to make sure nothing went wrong. "They're hiring event staff through TaskRabbit," Jenna informed me. "Servers, coat check, cleanup crew." 2 days later, I was hired as a server for the Synchronicity launch party. No one at the startup had ever met me in person except Marcus. With my hair pulled back and wearing the catering company's black uniform, I would be practically invisible. The night of the party arrived. I stood in the service area, watching Marcus work the room. He looked completely at ease, shaking hands and laughing with investors who believed he was a visionary. My vision blurred with angry tears as I loaded my tray with champagne flutes. "You okay?" asked another server. I blinked rapidly. "Fine, just allergies." For 2 hours, I served drinks and passed appetizers, moving through the crowd like a ghost. I overheard snippets of conversation, revolutionary approach to team dynamics, expecting to double the investment in the next round. Marcus has such an innovative mind. Each comment was a knife twisting in my gut. This should have been my night. These should have been my investors. This was my vision they were celebrating. At 8:30, Marcus clinked his glass for attention. The room quieted as he took center stage. "3 years ago, I had a vision," he began, my hands clenched into fists. 3 years ago, I had started building InnoSync. I saw a future where teams could work in perfect harmony, guided by intelligent systems that understood human dynamics. Everyone told me it was impossible. "No, I told you it was working when I showed you my prototype." But I believed. And thanks to all of you who believed with me, tonight we launch Synchronicity into the world. Applause filled the room. Marcus raised his glass higher. "To Synchronicity and the future of collaborative workspaces." The crowd echoed his toast. I checked my watch. 3, 2, 1. I pressed send on the email I'd prepared. The subject line was simple. Synchronicity, the truth about Marcus Reynolds' stolen intellectual property. Within seconds, phones began buzzing throughout the room. I watched as the first investor checked his screen, frowning. Then another, and another. Marcus was still smiling, unaware of what was happening. Then his own phone vibrated. He glanced down, his expression freezing as he read my name. The email contained a link to my evidence site and a simple message. "Everything Marcus Reynolds has told you about Synchronicity is a lie. See for yourselves." Murmurs spread through the crowd. People huddled in groups, looking at their phones, then at Marcus. His face had gone ashen. Our eyes met across the room. Recognition dawned in his expression, followed by shock, then fury. I removed my server's bow tie and walked toward the exit, my message delivered. Before I could reach the door, a hand caught my arm. I turned to face Richard Yamamoto, the lead investor from Apex Ventures. "Ms. Chen?" he asked quietly. I nodded, heart pounding. "I think we need to talk." The next 24 hours were a blur. After leaving the party with Mr. Yamamoto, I was ushered into an emergency meeting with the investment consortium. I presented my evidence calmly and answered their questions directly. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" one investor demanded. "Would you have believed me?" I countered. "A project manager with no connections against someone you'd already backed?" The uncomfortable silence was my answer. By morning, Marcus had been placed on leave pending investigation. By afternoon, forensic IT specialists had confirmed that key elements of Synchronicity's codebase matched my original work. By evening, Marcus was out, and the investors were in crisis management mode. Mr. Yamamoto called me personally. "We've verified your claims, Ms. Chen. The intellectual property clearly originated with you." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you. We have a proposition," he continued. "The technology is still revolutionary. The market opportunity is real, but we need someone authentic to lead it." I gripped my phone tighter. "Are you offering me Marcus's position?" "We're offering you your position," he corrected, "as founder and CEO of InnoSync. Same funding package, with appropriate adjustments to the cap table." My legs gave out, and I sank onto my couch. Pascal jumped into my lap, purring loudly as if he understood. "Ms. Chen, are you there?" "Yes," I managed. "I'm just processing." "Take 24 hours," he said. "But I should warn you, if you decline, we'll have to shutter the company and write off the investment. No one else can credibly lead this vision." After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Everything I'd wanted was suddenly within reach, but victory felt hollow. The betrayal still stung. The months of anxiety and anger had taken their toll. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" "Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet Marcus at a neutral location, a public park near the bay. I arrived first and watched him approach, looking nothing like the confident CEO from the launch party. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes red-rimmed. He sat beside me on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm sorry," he said simply. I stared out at the water. "That's it? After everything? What do you want me to say, Liv? That I fucked up? That I got greedy? That I convinced myself you'd never take it to market so it was okay for me to do it?" His voice cracked. "All of that is true." "Why?" I turned to face him. "We were friends. Best friends." Marcus rubbed his face wearily. "I was failing. My last 2 startups burned through cash and died. The firm was going to let me go. When I saw what you had built, it was like seeing a lifeline when you're drowning." Part of me wanted to sympathize. A larger part couldn't forget the betrayal. "You could have asked to partner with me," I said, legitimately. "Would you have agreed? Really? You've always been so protective of your work." "We'll never know, will we?" I stood up. "The investors offered me the company. The real company. My company." Hope flickered in his eyes. "And?" "I haven't decided yet." "Liv." He reached for my hand, which I pulled away. "Whatever you decide, I want you to know I'm truly sorry. Not just because I got caught. Because I hurt you." I studied his face, searching for the friend I had trusted for so many years. He was still in there, somewhere, behind the ambition and desperation that had led him astray. "Goodbye, Marcus." As I walked away, he called after me. "For what it's worth, I always believed in your vision. That part was never a lie." I didn't look back. That night, I made my decision. I called Mr. Yamamoto and accepted the offer with one condition. We would rebrand completely. New name, new start, no connection to Synchronicity or the scandal. "What did you have in mind?" he asked. "Authentech," I said. "Because authenticity matters, in technology and in life." He laughed. "I like it. Bold statement." 6 weeks later, I stood on a different stage, addressing a different crowd. My team, including Jenna, now my head of UX, stood proudly beside me. Investors and journalists watched attentively as I demonstrated the platform that had nearly been stolen from me. Authentech isn't just about optimizing workflows, I explained. It's about honoring the human elements that make teams successful: trust, communication, and integrity. As applause filled the room, I caught sight of a familiar figure at the back, Marcus, watching quietly. Our eyes met briefly. He nodded once. Acknowledgement, perhaps respect. then slipped out the door. I returned my attention to the audience, to my company, to the future I had fought for and won. Thank you for believing in this vision, I concluded. The authentic vision. The journey had changed me. I was still a builder, still a dreamer, still a problem solver. But now I was also a fighter, someone who wouldn't let her creation be stolen, no matter how powerful the opposition. My name is Olivia Chen, and this is my company, my vision, my story, as it should have been all along.